to this painting tutorial of a Space Marine Ultramarine Part 1. This is where we're going to take our miniature to a basic tabletop standard, then in Part 2 we will progress beyond that. As you can see, we're going to start it with a base coat of Macragge blue and fin down with some Lemayan medium, a heavy helping of Lemayan medium I might add, which I've already got on the palette behind me. So starting off, just base coating all over, and although I don't show it in this tutorial, it's going to take 2 coats. I used 2 coats of this, so once this was dry I just went over it again with another coat. So you just want to get it everywhere you can, basically all over the model and every nook and cranny. Love the base coating stage of any miniature painting project, where it goes from black or grey or white to a main colour and you think, yeah, that looks good. It's starting to come together. First couple of stages is always the easiest. Got the base coating and then we'll be moving on to the wash, but here, as you can see, just all around the model with an old brush. Next we apply the shade wash, which in this instance is going to be Drakenhof Nightshade, and we're just going to take it straight from the pot with no thinning down. I want nice dark shadowed areas for the recesses, so we're going to slather it on like we do the base coat basically. Always looks darker when you put it on at first, and it dries a bit lighter than that, so try not to be too alarmed when you put it on. You think, oh no, what am I doing? I'm completely changing the colour scheme of the model. You're not. As you can see, now it's dry, it's a lot lighter, a lot less noticeable. So what we're going to do now is come back in with Macragge blue, or Macragge, however you pronounce it, and we're just going to re-establish that lovely deep blue colour that is the basis for the Ultramarines. So we're just going over the larger areas. We're not going to the very edges, so we're allowing that shade wash to reside where we put it. So we've re-established the colours, and we've got a little bit of shadowed areas as well now. So just put it on, but don't go to the very edge. Leave a bit of a gap where the shade wash lies. So there we are, base coat all established once more, looking good. Next we're going to be working on the eagle across the breastplate, and we're going to do this in 2 stages. This is the first stage. The first stage we are applying ceramite white with a small helping of Lamea medium. And that's going to serve as the undercoat for our gold, which we'll be putting on later, which I will show you at that point. So we're just going to pop the white on to the breastplate here. Next we will be working on the metal areas, guns being the main ones. We're using lead belcher for this. That's also going to be finned down with a bit of Lamea medium. Didn't show that clip, but that's what we're using, lead belcher there. Just going over the guns, and we'll be doing the metal bits on his backpack, the vents, the vent in his mask. I think that's it. Now that that's done, we're going to go back to the eagle, and we're going to be using Balzar Gold and a very heavy helping of Lamea medium, at least 3-to-1 mixed. Really water it down. You want it like the consistency of milk. Now I'm just going to apply this over the white, on top of the white, and what this does is it does a couple of things. It kind of lightens the Balzar Gold. I mean, Balzar Gold is useful for a lot of things, but on the eagles I feel it's too dark. The lighter golds are too shiny. I just can't get my right gold I like, so this is a way I found that I like to do it. This kind of dulls it down a bit, but gives it some lighter highlights as well. So that's what I do. So next we're going to use Balzar Gold on its own, not even thinned down, as it's going on the edges, the trims of the shoulder pads or the shoulder guards, whatever they're called. And this is the point I find where when you're doing Ultramarines, they really start looking like Ultramarines now. Once you've done this, it can be a bit fiddly this stage, but just take your time and go through it. Just do a little bit at a time. Depending on the pose, depends on the ease of which you can get to them. I mean, obviously, if they've got their arms and it's access all areas, then it's pretty easy to do, but sometimes there's always a bit that's under the backpack or something, or a weapon's in the way. You just got to take your time and go at it in a steady manner. Next we're going to do the little round waxy bits of the purity seals. I presume they're wax. I don't know what they don't click wax. So I'm going to use my fist on red for this, as it's a good contrast to the blue of the Ultramarines. When I'm painting red models such as Blood Angels, I tend to use the Screamer Pink, because obviously red doesn't go contrast well with red, because it kind of disappears into the background. Fail to see it. So on this one though, you can use either though really. Fist on red looks good, I feel. Next, Rakar Flesh. Basically doing it the same way I did my Purity Seal tutorial. It might not all be at the same time. So I'm just going through it. I cut a lot of that out because, I mean, you've got the other tutorial to see how I do it. It's just exactly the same method I use. Okay, next we're going to do the eyes, and I'm using Vallejo Air Scarlet Red for this, although you can also use Mephiston Red if you really water it down, or thin it down, whatever you prefer. But I'm using the Vallejo Air Paint, as they're thin anyway. No need to thin it down anymore. I'm using it because it's I'm not that great at eyes, so the thinner the paint, the easier it seems to pool in the recess of the eye socket. So that's why I tend to go for the air paints for that. So doing it this way, I find it a lot easier. The thinner the paint, the better for me in this instance, and I don't mind then doing 2 or even 3 coats on the eyes. I only used 1, I think, for this. Or it might have been 2. 2 at max. Agrek Surf Shade. Probably my most used shade wash ever. So I'm going over the scrolls and the purity seals with this. And I'll also be going into all the recesses of the model. Now, believe it or not, I found this to be the longest stage of this part of the tutorial. It seemed to take forever, and I cut out an awful lot of what feels like an awful lot of footage from it. It just seems to take a long time to do. I just wanted to put it in, basically put it in all the recesses. Sorry, I got off camera there a little bit at times. But basically put it in all the recesses where you feel that you want to pop out and catch the eye. So I like to do along the edges of the shoulder pad trims. And don't even worry if you go over the gold, because it looks good anyway. It gives a really nice effect, I feel, putting that in. Just gotta take your time. As with all these stages now, just take your time and don't try and rush it. Just anywhere you want a little bit of shadow, just pop those lines in. going to put some Null Oil over the areas that we previously painted as metal. In this case, the guns and the vents and a couple of the bits on the back of the backpack. So we're almost there for this part of the tutorial. Just going to finish off the purity seal after this, and then once that's done, that will be part 1 done then. As you can see, that stage didn't take long at all. Caribou Crimson, going to do a little bit of Caribou Crimson, just a tiny speck on top of the purity seals and in the eye sockets. Screaming Skull is next, as per our purity seal tutorial. As I say, I'm doing exactly the same method. It's the way I use for a lot of my purity seals. Sometimes I change the colours up a little bit, but it depends on my frame of mind, really. I'm doing like a squad or a unit. I tend to keep them all the same. And once we're done here, we're at a stage where I would be happy to, if I was having to paint a lot of Ultramarines, I would simply just base them up and off I go, and then maybe come back to them a couple at a time, when I've got the time to sort of take them to the next level. As you can see, Pallid Witch Flesh, this will be the final highlight on the purity seals. And then that will be part 1 of the Ultramarine tutorial done. It's basically just showing you how one method I use to paint my Ultramarines. It's changed since I started painting. This is the way I'm sort of painting now. I don't paint a lot of them. It's just now and again. I like the blue colours, I think they just look good. Now that's part 1 of the tutorial done. I would be happy to field that once I've based it up. But obviously in part 2, join me for part 2 where I'm going to take it to another level, well, for me, and put even more highlights on, make it look even better. But I'm happy with that at that stage. Sorry about the shakiness of my hands. I don't have a sort of turntable. Something for the future perhaps. But thank you for joining me on this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next video. Remember, all brushes lead to war.